Hello, everybody. I'm Kipp Snow, Director of the Transportation Distribution Logistics Institute at the Community College of Baltimore County.
Hey, everybody. Community Manager Mike Singer, Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers. Welcome to Two Guys Talking Ship podcast, episode 48. 48, is that right?
Yep. Sure is. How's your week?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Went to the Bumpus's house yesterday for a party and almost got my shirt ruined, but I think we're good. I think it's just,
I know that there's a backstory with that, but
totally cool. Family party. Niece got some education done for her job and stuff, and so we're all there to celebrate that. And they love dogs, you know what I mean? And one of them greeted me by surprise.
Oh, okay, all right.
Jumped up.
So it was out of love and not out of hatred or
they got a great
mosh pit or anything. Okay.
No, the mosh pit, that was Metallica. That was a couple weeks ago.
All right.
But they got a great place, and it was nice to see a lot of family that we don't normally see, so that was cool.
Cool.
And then last night we come home, and unbeknownst to us, somebody across the way hired one of our favorite bands. So Wendy and I are like, oh, well, let's grab maybe a beer and sit on the back deck, and we'll just listen to one of our favorite bands for free from like a half mile away.
Nice.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
Nice.
It's a nice surprise.
We had yesterday was my son's. He's in a Scouts BSA troop, and they had their annual Strawberry Festival parade and dunking booth yesterday. So that we were out in the rain in the parade, and then consequently in the sun in the dunking booth. So we stayed wet most of the day, and but we had a good time with doing a little bit of fundraising for his troop. So
did you have a separate booth like selling squeegees for $25 a piece, so people could just like, oh, because you're in the rain, right? And then once you're in the rain, and you can kind of go, okay, I'm wet, who cares? Right. But then when the sun comes out and it gets humid and hot, it's just like, oh.
Yeah. There were those periods of fluctuation back and forth with all that. So yeah.
So was it fun?
Great times.
Yeah.
Yep.
The dunking booth thing went well.
My son was heckling folks and got the consequent dunking. So he got what he earned.
Fun.
Yep.
Does sound fun.
All good. All right, let's get into some shipping updates.
All right, so just a reminder, if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, hit the bell to be alerted to new podcasts as they come available. So into the shipping updates. So this week, a little bit of a blip, which is something that we haven't seen. I almost feel like we need to make a spreadsheet of this. Cough, cough.
Yeah. Add that to the researchers department's to-do list.
It seems like it's been months, right?
Right.
Since we've seen a number like this. So anyway, let's go back 5 weeks. So we're talking about average daily truck transactions. So it's basically this many truck transactions every day for said given week. So we're going to go back five. We're going to go back 5 weeks. I'm just going to roll through the numbers. 3887 per day. 3899 per day. 3746 per day. 3779 per day, and then just this past week that just finished, 3355. So down 400 truck transactions per day. So that's 2,000 on total for the week. So here we are tracking this stuff. Still have no idea what it means.
Well, I mean, if you're looking at, when I would look at these types of metrics, I'd go, okay, well, what may have caused that? In the week prior, you actually reference that you've got 4 days based on the Memorial Day holiday. So that sometimes those types of transactions, I mean, it could just be volume. It could be a part of the bullwhip effect of tariffs, and maybe this was part of the week several weeks ago where there were fluctuations, and there may have been decisions to not ship during that time. So that may be what some of that fluctuation is.
And I would think if we go to the next 2 weeks, right, and the numbers are back into 3,700, then this was an oddball. If they stay around 33, then now you're talking about what might be, a slight downturn trend.
Correct.
But
that's what I was going to get
last
to.
week. We were kind of surprised, or at least I was, that there wasn't more volume per day,
right?
So that it equaled out to a typical week, which I think is what typically happens when they do a holiday.
Mm-hmm.
And so the daily volume stayed the same, but they didn't try to pack 5 days of stuff into 4 days,
right?
And because of that, I kind of thought this week would be maybe even a little higher, and it's lower. So, it is a little interesting that I'd find it funny,
Sure.
almost have to laugh at it that we're doing all this stuff to track it, and we still don't know what it means. But maybe we'll know in a month what some of this meant based on the trends that we see going forward.
I think we could probably look also and see if there's what the correlation is between what ships are coming in at the time and what what the schedule is, what the volume is. So that may just be as simple as that.
Mm-hmm. And like I mentioned last week, the schedule looks pretty heavy,
right,
coming up. But it almost looks like they pick a day, and we're just going to schedule all these ships 2 or 3 weeks out, and we'll just set them on, I don't know, whatever, the 15th or the 16th or the 1st, and we'll move them later as in the schedule as things kind of flesh out, for lack of a better term, because you look at the schedule and you'll see a day that has 6 or 7 or 8 ships, and you just go, there's only 3 spots. There's no way they can do that. But so that's just my guess.
Okay. Well, why don't we get into some? We've got quite a bit of news that's taken place this week. The Pride of Baltimore has been in the news. You got some updates on it?
Well, yeah. So what? She's 1 week into her trip to the Great Lakes. She'll be gone till December. They're doing that Tall Ships America Tall Ships Challenge. That's almost right up there with Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers. Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers podcast. I mean, I don't.
It's a mouthful.
I know, right? But so wanted to highlight where she is, or just talk about what the highlights of the trip might be every week.
Do you know where she's at right now?
I do. Let's take a look at that. So here's marine traffic. And I would love to know the mileage. I wanted to know the mileage. And just so she's in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. So let's zoom in here. So about a third of the way down in Nova Scotia, and let's check this out. Let's keep going. Yeah, it's like this cool little small town. Look how small this town is.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the houses are right there.
Right there on the
at the port.
That's really cool.
Yeah, kind of interesting, huh? So I was a little disappointed in myself geographically. I'm kind of a map guy. I always have to know where everything is on a map. Oh, somebody mentioned something, I have this illness. I have to go to Google Maps and find it and see what it looks like. It's just curiosity. It's pre-wired from mom. It's just the way it is. And I was like, oh, the Bay of Fundy. Now, you know about the Bay of Fundy, right? It's this crazy place where the tides swing 30 and 50 feet.
Oh, yes.
And the ships come in during high tide, and the tide goes out. The ships are on the bottom, in the middle.
Yes.
Right? And then high tide comes, they refloat, and they can leave. Fascinating. People take buses and, walk down so you can, see the bottom.
Sure.
But here's the thing: this is a huge bay here. So I don't even know where people do that. Like, is it over here in like the St. John Harbor? Because this looks a little muddy. Like, I don't even know.
It looks
I don't
pretty
even.
shallow.
Right. I don't even know where people do that. Yeah, but I think this is so. That's just a little aside. The thing that may only interest me. I should have
Oh,
headlined that.
all right.
But so I think this is Pride of Baltimore's first stop here.
Okay.
Yeah, can we go back to the spaghetti model?
Yeah. Yeah. So we actually have we talked about this last week in
Mm-hmm.
last episode, but we actually have a map of all of the stops that she's going to be taking here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. So I just big ups to Patrick at Pride of Baltimore because I got talking to him and I was like, "Hey, you guys don't have one of those spaghetti models, do you?" And he didn't, and he put it together.
Nice. Okay.
So how cool is that?
Absolutely. So they're right here in Nova Scotia, and this kind of gives you that kind of perspective. Started down here in Baltimore, came through the C&D Canal and up the East Coast.
Right, and went through the Cape Cod Canal there.
Yeah.
So 2 canal visits before they got to Nova Scotia.
So I think they're parked there right now, getting ready to go into the leg of the actual Tall Ships Festival.
All right, Kipp. So if we're gonna be 2 guys talking ship podcast, berthed or docked would be the vocabulary word of the day.
What did I say?
Parked.
Parked. Oh yeah. There you go. It's a vessel. I get it.
Yeah. People have been shot for less.
I know. So the schedule, June, the back half of June, she's going to be in Brockville, Ontario, and Toronto, Ontario, and then in July, Duluth, okay, Boyne City, and Sturgeon Bay. Back into the U.S. stops, and then in August, Detroit, Buffalo, and Erie. So
yeah, and look how much time between Toronto and to get all the way to the end of the map, all the way to the other end of the map there, like all the way at the far end of Lake Superior, is like almost 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks.
You think about all the canal locks that they have to transit. It's going to be a pretty good lift.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll continue to track the Pride of Baltimore II through this trip.
Sounds good.
So you got some updates on the Key Bridge?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
I know a lot of people from a majority, from the people in Baltimore metro area probably aren't watching the camera. The people who watch the camera know that there were cranes out there doing work, like pre-planning work, like test samples and that kind of thing. And then they were doing searching for debris, which I found interesting. Like, I always thought that there was some kind of like radar or sonar that could see through the bottom a ways. And so they were just out there, like, reminding me of my dad when we were crabbing and fishing, and like when he didn't have a depth finder, you're just taking a crabbing net and sticking it down in the water. Let's see how deep it is here. But these guys are doing it with a pipe that's about 2 feet around and a crane, and they're shoving it down into the water, basically. Well, and remember that one time I took the pictures and we saw that pipe was 75 feet into the mud. We did the calculation, right? Because it was marked at the 90-foot level. And I went out there in my boat and took the boat and put it right up next to the pipe in red, and it said it was in 15 feet of water. So the pipe was 70 feet into the mud.
Wow.
So they're out there like just kind of making sure they don't hit anything, because when you put the real pilings in to support this monstrous bridge, you want to make sure that they're going in fresh material and that you're not going to hit anything when you finally get out there to actually build the bridge.
Right.
Now, all that's done. The cranes are gone.
Oh, okay.
But they still need to do the static load test. So you have a picture of that?
I do.
So this is interesting. You know how every time we get a piece of news, we're like, oh, this is going to happen, right? We initially had this graphic in episode 31. We're in episode 47. So more than 4 months later, you know, if we think 4 podcasts per month, and this is 16 episodes later and we skip a few.
Sure.
4 or 5 months later, we're still waiting for the static load test, which is coming up soon. They had to change the contracts a little bit to add some things in. This is one of the things that they added. They needed to have the money to go buy the materials. I don't understand the nuances and the details of it. Maybe we'll be able to get to that in a couple of weeks. Why can't you just buy anything? Isn't anything available off the shelf? Does it have to be specific? What, you know?
Why didn't you have this in the warehouse ready to go in case of a bridge collapse so that we could just start this process faster?
Well, that sounds a little crazy.
Well, but, that's some of the what some of the things are that I've heard. It's like, why does it not, like, these things take time, and when you go and investigate and do these tests and they come back negative or not within the threshold that you're needing it to be, you've got to go do some more testing or maybe a different design in order to address that. There are reasons behind it.
Right. And I was just saying that I don't know what the reasons are.
Sure.
Like, not anything specific to this, to say that there would be a warehouse of stuff to use in the event of a bridge collapse sounds kind of crazy and maybe stupid. But, the crazy internet comments we've seen would not surprise us if somebody said something like that, right? Because people are out there losing their mind because they haven't started the bridge yet. I mean, I would like to see more progress.
Sure.
But that's why we're talking about this, to try to help educate a little bit. But I'm just saying, if you're doing a static load test, I would almost think that, there would be some of these materials are around, to be able to purchase from a warehouse. And, and so if they have to go out and acquire them or get them made, why is it so specific? I'm just curious why.
Sure.
Not throwing anybody under the bus.
No. Yeah, no.
Wondering how it works.
Yeah, no. What you're getting at is you would like for the process to, be explained, because it probably would answer a whole bunch of questions as to why it's taking so long.
Yeah. But just, if I could remind everybody, that's why we have this Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers group from 2017 and have 16,000 members, because Mike is always going, well, why does that work? Or what are those ships doing? Or why are they here? Right. And so that's like the catalyst behind everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, so hopefully that'll get started in a couple of weeks, and then we'll see some more cranes come back and see some more processes.
Sure.
And a little bit closer to, actual demo, which is another thing. Let me just go ahead and talk about that for a minute. Like, why haven't they torn this thing down? And from what I've heard, the understanding that I have is, if the prime, I don't even know if that's the correct terminology, Kiewit, if they go ahead and spend money on demo, then they're not awarded the design contract.
Mm.
Then they have just donated their money and time. So they're going to wait to see that the design is done or as done as it needs to be to award the design contract, which hasn't been done yet.
Okay.
So, and again, when we first talked about this, this progressive design build, this sounds great. We're going to be able to build the bridge while we're designing it. Maybe that didn't. I mean, maybe there's something we don't know, that we don't understand the process, but it doesn't seem as build while we design as we thought, since we're still waiting for them to finish the design and the design contract hasn't been awarded yet.
Sure.
So,
Um,
we're still learning here.
Sure. And I've never built a bridge, so I don't have any way to compare what, different design outcomes to know if we're, maybe this is actually the process and we are faster.
You know what? Maybe I should share my resume. Let me go in there and check. Yeah, I'm pretty sure bridge building isn't on there.
Okay, right.
So we're just trying to learn and maybe teach as we go.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Along the lines of the Key Bridge and the Dolly, there was it's not new news, but it kind of came to light a little bit with the Baltimore Banner article this week. And in that article, it talked about the NTSB report for the collision. I took a quick look at that link. I think you took a quick look. There's a significant amount of data that they have compiled and put together, a tremendous amount of firsthand, witness statements and reviews and things. I took a look at one of the many documents and just became overwhelmed with the amount of information that was there.
Right.
But I think over the next couple of weeks, you and I are going to spend some time in there and look through it and see what other information we might be able to gather out of the report that general public's probably curious about.
Sure.
Part of it was the NTSB report on the vessel data recorder. So this is like the black box of that you see in planes when there's a plane incident.
Right, and we covered that before. It's not exactly the same thing.
Correct.
Right. They're not as heavily regulated. They don't record as much. They don't record as much minutia. Hey, don't you have a black box? Well, it's different, but it's there.
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So so they do have the transcripts from the different components of the ship, and it's broken down into 4 areas: the pre-departure events, the 4 minutes leading up to the bridge, the moment of impact, and then the post-impact discussions on the bridge.
Oh, that's
yeah. So there's quite a bit of data that's there.
Right. Do you recall the date on the NTSB file or
I
document that you're talking about? Because I'm wondering, is this just somebody finally dug it up?
I think that's what it was. Yes.
And then now we've seen 10, 15 different articles and things on YouTube about it.
Right.
Like once somebody brings it up, then everybody has to run with it.
That's what's happened. It had been posted for several months actually, but just had not, just not had been, publicly acknowledged or realized. And then after the Banner report, then you started to see some people chime in. I think Sal chimed in on it also.
I think he did. I definitely think he did.
So we're going to take a look at it and see if there's any information that we can discuss here in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, I'm sure there's a ton, right?
Yep. All right. Oh, so elsewhere in the port, the Stad Amsterdam came to town on Tuesday of this week, and then left on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And we got some pictures and videos of this.
All right, great.
So we got some videos of her
Mm-hmm.
leaving the Port of Baltimore
Oh,
on.
this is from the Fells Point Pier.
Yes,
So
this is
that's
from
cool.
Fells Point. That is
Broadway.
correct.
Very cool. Now check out USNS Pomeroy
Oh yeah, I was wondering if you're going to mention
in the
that.
background.
Yeah. So that's neat to see.
Yeah, and then you can see the tanker there
Mm.
at the terminal, and I think they do two different things there at the terminal. There's a farm feed company that's there,
Mm.
and then I think that same terminal also feeds another business there.
Okay.
I think that's correct. Took me years to learn that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Right there. The red ship that you see is what you're at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
For some reason, tankers are typically red,
Okay.
and then they're red in marine traffic also.
I learned something new. How about that?
There you go.
All right. Also, there was another. David Seitz had this.
That's awesome. That was great.
Yeah. So also, there was a picture that I believe David captured also of Annie.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know Annie, Annie is the red-haired lady known to the crew in name as Annie, prominently representing the frontal part of the clipper Stad Amsterdam. She gives the unique identity as was usual with figureheads, which were popular between the 16th and 20th centuries. And Annie also means Amsterdam, which is a free spirit. And so she's a little free spirited and a little bit sassy. From her red flowing hair to the tips of her toes, she is Amsterdam. And that is how she, the largest Dutch sailing ship, sets out in peace sailing into the big blue to travel the world. Represented by the globe in her right hand. So you can see in the picture here, she's got her globe. But she embodies the unity of the city of Amsterdam and the company. And I don't know what the company is. I've cut that off.
Oh.
So she embodies the unity of the city of Amsterdam. So that's pretty neat. The symbol of, some of the symbolic natures of some of these ships and some of the things that they've done to represent who they are and what they're shipping.
Right.
To represent who they are and the ship's culture and the things like that. So that's pretty neat.
Right.
You got some other news happening for the Carnival Pride?
So, just kind of like some bullet points of some things that happened this week. We don't have a whole lot of information about any of them, but one, the Carnival Pride is back early this morning from a 2-week trip to Greenland. She's here every Sunday. Every Sunday. Comes in the morning, leaves by 5 every Sunday like clockwork. She wasn't here last Sunday, which it's unusual. A lot of people look forward to that.
Sure.
So she's back, and I think we'll be back on our normal weekly schedule. The Row Morning Menade came back. Now this is the one that grounded in the wind. Remember that?
Oh,
and
yes.
We had the pictures.
Yes.
And we did the little diagram, and we had the picture of the guy like welding from the inside. You could see the sparks that they had to do the repair because it hit the terminal. I think they were trying to correct, and then something happened, and so that's a notable ship that came back. The Grande Costa d'Avorio, which is a Grimaldi Conroe.
Okay, yeah.
But this is the one that left here It was 2023, I think, and it left here, went to New York, caught on fire.
Oh, this one.
Yes.
Interesting.
So we should have a picture, but we don't.
Okay.
But I mean, it looks beautiful
Wow. Okay.
because it's probably fresh out of dry dock.
Sure.
And regrettably, 2 firefighters lost their life fighting
Wow.
that fire. And Sal highlighted this. He highlighted this specific instance
Wow.
in one of his videos and talking about the need to educate departments on how to fight these EV fires, because lithium as a metal, it can burn. It doesn't even matter. You can throw a chunk of lithium on fire, throw it in the water, it'll be on the bottom burning. It doesn't matter. So you can't fight these fires. I've thrown a couple of logs on the fire at the house. I'm just repeating what I've heard.
Sure.
You can't fight these fires normally. You have to close off the deck, pump it with, I think it's CO2 to help drive the air out, and just let it burn and hope, because driving the CO2 and the air out keeps everything else from catching on fire, like secondary.
Right.
But it's almost impossible to fight these fires because the batteries are underneath the cars. The cars are so tightly lashed together in a sea of automobiles in a parking lot in a chip. So notable ship, but
Sure.
sad reasoning. And then the USNS Pomeroy finally came back to town, went to North Locust Point. Now, remember this. This was good. What did you want to say?
I was going to ask, did it stay this time or did it go back out this time?
It stayed this time.
Okay.
I am fascinated by... Now, we all have communication breakdowns. You and I both talked about examples of that, like this week. So something wasn't communicated, and she came all the way into town, tugs and everything, and then the pier setup wasn't right, and then had to go back, and then wound up anchoring what I would say is an odd spot down in Norfolk. Not one of the normal ship anchoring spots. And then did come back. So this is a MSC, but not to be confused with that MSC. This is Military Sea Lift Command.
Correct.
Part of their 33 ship pre-positioning, easy for me to say, pre-positioning program. So what does that mean? That means put the ships on the coast pre-positioned, so that in the event of need, they can get to where they need to be faster.
I have no information. I'm only speculating, but if we're starting to see these military Sea Lift Command ships move around some, it's typically in preparation for some potential event in a theater. And if you can look at, world news going on there, there's a tremendous amount of world related events that we may want to have our military Sea Lift Command prepped and ready to go to address.
Yes and no. I'm going to agree with you and disagree with you.
And I'm fine with the no also.
Yeah, because these two, these ships tend to move around a bit. Now, only if you're watching for a really long time, only if you're paying attention for years. If you looked for weeks or months, the same ships have always been here. They never do anything. They never move. Right? But if you're watching for years, you'll see that if every once in a while one will come, one will go, they'll go to a different place. So typically what happens, Baltimore, we have 6 of these ships. I'm grouping all the gray hulls together. I think the ready reserves are different from the MSC ships. Is that correct?
That is correct.
One of these days, it's only been 2017. One of these days, I'll know what the heck I'm talking about. So I'm grouping them all together. So 2 in Port Covington, 2 on Clinton Street, north of Rucker Terminals, and then 2 at North Locust Point, where we saw in the Stad Amsterdam video. But now there's 3 on Clinton Street. So adding this 1 where there used to be 2 takes us back up to our normal 6. And there have been supply missions that have left out of the Port of Baltimore. So we know that. So it could mean something, or it could be just the two other ships, the Antares and the Denobula.
Correct.
They said, "Hey, these are old. We're taking them out of here. We're sending them to be scrapped." And we wondered when we were going to get another ship. Then we got another one. So our 5th ship, it went to Clinton Street instead of going back to North Locust Point. Maybe it's a different ship, doesn't fit the pier at North Locust Point, because if you look on satellite and look at what I'm calling a pier, you might look at it and say, what pier? There's not really much of a pier there.
Sure.
So, but this ship, the USNS Pomeroy, was named after a Medal of Honor recipient. So I thought I would do a dive and read about that.
Okay.
So Private First Class Pomeroy received the Medal of Honor after he passed for his heroic actions October 15th, 1952 near Kumbwa, Korea. And, you know, just on the surface, when you see that, it's just that little blurb. Then when you want to find out what he, let's read. Let's find out what he did. You have to go and dig a little deeper. It typically, like the 2 from what my research just this morning, the 2 weren't together. So I'm not a good reader, and this stuff tends to make me emotional. So bear with me.
Sure.
So, but as we're coming off of D-Day 2 days ago, and I know this is Korea, and I know that's different, but I thought it would be cool to highlight why this person received the Medal of Honor. Private First Class Pomeroy, a machine gunner with Company E, distinguished himself by conspicuous gallantry and indomitable courage above and beyond the call of duty in action against the enemy. While his comrades were consolidating on a key terrain feature, he manned a machine gun at the end of a communication trench on the forward slope to protect the platoon flank and prevent a surprise attack. When the enemy attacked through a ravine leading directly to his firing position, he immediately opened fire on the advancing troops, inflicting a heavy toll in casualties and blunting the assault. At this juncture, the enemy directed intense concentrations of artillery and mortar fire on his position in an attempt to neutralize his gun. Despite withering fire and bursting shells, he maintained his heroic stand and poured crippling fire into the ranks of the hostile force until a mortar burst severely wounded him and rendered the gun mount inoperable. Quickly removing the hot, heavy weapon. Now imagine this. He cradled it in his arms, moving forward with grim determination, raked the attacking forces with a hail of fire. Although wounded a second time, he pursued his Moving forward with grim determination, he raked the attacking forces with a hail of fire. Although wounded a second time, he pursued his relentless course until his ammunition was expended within 10 feet of the foe, and then, using the machine gun as a club, courageously closed with the enemy in hand-to-hand combat until mortally wounded. So he just didn't stop, and you took the gun, just kept firing, took the gun off the mount, which was broken. The gun is hot. He's shooting. The gun runs out. Then he starts using it as a club. Private First Class, consummate valor, inspirational actions, and supreme sacrifice enabled the platoon to maintain the integrity of the perimeter, reflecting lasting glory upon himself and upholding the noble traditions of military service.
The least they could do is stick his name on a ship.
Yeah. Private First Class, too.
Exactly.
Right? So, hadn't been in the service for that long.
Makes you really think about, hey, every time a ship comes through here and there's a name on it, who is that name, and what does that represent? And you know, when you learn about stories like this and the effort that they went through in order to do their job, you know, do what they believed in and what they were trying to achieve, it's mind-blowing.
Right. And that's why I wanted to make myself read it.
Sure.
Because, you know, I think we lose sight of this stuff. How important it is. What people went through, that they didn't need somebody at their back with a bayonet saying, you will guard this and you will keep firing. Right? And just did it.
Yeah.
Just incredible stuff.
Absolutely.
So how do we follow that?
I was just about to say, I don't know how to transition out of that one. Thanks for reading that. It's important to remember those who sacrificed, and that there is a human element that's involved in all of these transactions. And that while this individual is no longer with us, it really meant a tremendous amount, that effort.
And it happened 70 years ago. How about that?
Absolutely.
We're not talking about Iraq or Afghanistan or 70 years ago.
And it's not to diminish any of those efforts either.
Right.
But it's important for us to always remember.
Yeah, I thought it was, I mean, I probably wouldn't have driven down that rabbit hole of figuring that out until somebody, I think in the camera chat, said, this ship is named after a Medal of Honor recipient. I was like, oh, really? You know, and then when I saw the small blurb, let me read that again. Private First Class Pomeroy received the Medal of Honor posthumously. See, I didn't even say it that right that time. For his heroic actions, October 15th, 1952, Korea. So I'm like, okay, where's the story? And like you said, I felt it was important to read it.
Sure.
And I knew that I would get emotional read it. I knew that even before I read it. But I thought it was important to do that.
Absolutely. All right. Moving on. All right. So Carnival Cruise Lines released this graphic. And it was I like these because they always kind of give some type of some statistics to kind of provide some.
Finally, sorry.
Thank you. Finally, you show. So they release these graphics sometimes to talk about statistics about who they are and what they do. But I thought this was quite interesting. That this summer, 30,000 Carnival guests will be leaving the Port of Baltimore on their cruise-related endeavors. This will generate nearly $12 million in local economic impact. And you're like, wait a second, how's that? All people doing is they're coming in here, coming off of 95, they're parking their car and they're getting on the ship. Wait a second, this doesn't make any sense.
Even parking is cheap. How does that add up to $12 million?
Exactly. But the best part is, they'll be traveling and they'll enjoy around 50,000 hamburgers and 240,000 servings of ice cream. Now,
Are they basically calculating like everything that they have to load onto the ship for a cruise?
well, that's part of it. So you not only do you have, if your cruise is going to go out for a week or so, they have to have all of the supplies that they need for the week. Now, I'm sure that there may be components where they stop in ports of calls and they may take on more food, or more supplies and things like that. But each, that in order for that to happen, they have to source all of those products either locally or have a distribution network to be able to accept that at those ports of call, which means business from those local communities. So, 30,000 guests for the whole summer, and you look at 240,000 ice cream cones. That's probably, 4 to 5 ice cream cones per week per person. So that's everybody walking up to the little soft serve ice cream machine going that every day. And you think, what's the big deal? It's just it's just a little ice cream cone. But if everybody on the ship, every trip goes and gets an ice cream cone, that's where this this metric comes from. So, these.
So you're thinking, I'm just kind of clarifying, you're thinking that $12 million local economy, that is included in the number. Let me try to get this out of my face. That number does include all the supplies that they're putting on the ship. I mean, they have to buy them from local companies, right?
Exactly.
The local companies have to go there with a truck and put all the stuff in the warehouse. And I mean, this is every week.
Correct.
It's amazing to watch, if you ever get down to the port. The ship comes in, they're in at 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, right? Everybody's off the ship by like 11 or something like that? And then you can get on the ship by like 1:30 or something like that. So you're not talking about a lot of time in between. Meanwhile, the ship is a crazy flurry of activity because they have to clean everything. They're doing all the staterooms. They're getting rid of all the old stuff, all the old trash. They have to make room for all the new stuff that's getting put on board while you're sitting there with your suitcase going, when are they going to call my number?
Right.
So I can, so it is pretty amazing from a logistical standpoint, just that they're able to turn these ships around in under 12 hours.
Yeah, they
way under 12 hours. I mean, people are boarding the ship. Let's see, ship comes in. I mean, let's use 8 o'clock. So within 6 hours, people are on the ship thinking, "Oh man, this is the beginning of my cruise. Let me go get myself a beer or a drink or whatever, a slice of pizza or salad, whatever." You know what I mean? And people are already enjoying their next cruise, and it's less than 6 hours from when they docked.
So
the turnaround
they figured out that there's a scientific process that where they have to hit certain activities at certain times for all of this to work seamlessly.
And then you wonder why, when you go on a cruise, your stateroom isn't ready. We'll deliver your luggage. And that's why, because they're trying to make all this stuff happen.
Correct.
And something's got to wait. Sorry.
You can also equate this to like the airline industry. When a plane comes and they, the passengers disembark, and then there's a process to get everybody in very quickly to be able to take off by a certain time. And yes, there's FAA, scheduling for you to be able to take off, but they're not making money in the plane unless it's actually flying. So in this particular case, they're not making any money as long as the cruise ship is sitting in the dock. They need to have that kind of choreographed as like an automatic process to just happen. So.
So, and speaking of making money, the thing that may only interest me when you're talking about making money, the Guy Fieri burgers,
Oh yes.
they're not included. When you spend all this money to eat and drink all you want and gain 10 pounds while you're gone for a week and have a great time, the Guy Fieri burgers are not included.
Oh, so
And I'm just saying, when I spend all that money to eat all I can, I'll be damned if I'm spending another $20 on another 550,000 burgers. Not happening.
well, I mean that alone. I mean, you look at if it's 30,000 guests over the summer and everybody's eating what 1.5 of those Guy Fieri burgers. That's hey, that was good. Let me go. Some of us are going to go back for the second time. I mean
Right.
that's a lot of burgers. That's it's a lot of
Yeah.
beef and condiments and
And I mean, we know Guy Fieri makes good
Mhm.
stuff, and
Yeah.
um, and I'm there. I mean, I've been on one of these ships. I've walked through that little. What do you mean? I'd pay another $20 to eat
Sure.
them? Keep walking. No,
So that's a
I think I did do and sometimes there are some restaurants on the cruise ships
Mhm.
that aren't included in
right. Your package or
your one price package. And I think we did do a steakhouse once, because like the whole family was on the cruise, and so did it just to be with the fam. Um, but yeah, not something that I would typically.
okay.
So I mean, big ups to the people who spend the extra money on Guy Fieri
Absolutely.
burgers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So these infographics are always interesting to look at. It's some of the data that they have.
Right. A little background, we see the ship come and go all the time, right? And, so what does that mean from a number standpoint?
Port of Baltimore news this week: Tradepoint Terminals. So this is not Tradepoint Atlantic. This is one of the subsidiaries of Tradepoint Atlantic. Tradepoint Terminals announced a $35 million investment in a bulk cargo conveyance system, which is both
Mm-hmm.
indoor and outdoor. And it's a bulk storage expansion. It supports. It's going to build up some of the infrastructure and the rail connectivity as part of a strategic plan to modernize its bulk logistics and port operations down there at in Sparrows Point. So I
Right.
don't know. A lot of people realize that they are trying to expand with multi products across all the modes, and some of this includes the bulk operations. They have been doing some, but this is going to improve their operations.
Mm-hmm.
The expansion project is on and immediately adjacent to the existing pier that
Mm-hmm.
and will have high capacity conveyors and hoppers equipped with variable speed controls and washdown functionality allow for the seamless handling
Hmm.
of all of the different bulk materials
That's
from
interesting.
cement and road and salt fertilizer and all those kinds of products.
Mm-hmm. So I thought we would take a look at this because, they routinely are doing bulk over there, right? And they're doing all different kind of stuff. I can't even keep track of what it is, because when the gypsum ship goes to the gypsum factory, when the coal ship goes to the coal terminal, when the salt ship goes to the terminal that only does salt, when the Domino sugar ship goes to Domino, it's real easy to figure out what's going on.
Mhm.
When bulk stuff happens at Trade Point, you have no idea what it could be. A myriad of 10 different things, right? It could be scrap. It could be what's the slag,
Mhm.
which the cement plant, which was built on site to use slag, which is a byproduct of steel making. Right now, they have to import it.
Right.
Right, so there's all this different stuff. So what we're talking about here is we're talking about this what we call the finger pier. Now there used to be big cranes sitting on this, and they took them down 3 or 4 years ago. Um, but this is where they're building this conveyor system. And what's interesting is I was curious because, okay, are you going to have this work both sides of the pier?
Mm.
Because, immediately I'm thinking of all this stuff because, when you're talking scrap, I don't think you can do that on a conveyor, right? And so that stuff needs to be trucked in. And so if you're having this conveyor, um, is it really going to be on both sides of the pier? Because if it is, then it has to go like up and over to allow like dump
Mm.
trucks to get. And we're talking about like not a regular size dump truck, like the big industrial ones, right?
Sure.
Um, and so I did ask. This conveyor is only for one side of the pier, which leaves the other side of the pier open for a more varied amount of bulk products to go in and out of. And then so I found it interesting that they said they were going to tie it to the railroad, right? Which the railroad is back here. I think it runs. I thought it ran right along here, right along
Sure.
this road. This graphic is
It
old.
is. Yeah.
Um,
The
this is marine traffic. What happens if I? Okay, there we go. This is Google Maps. Let's see if this is. Yeah, this is a bit more updated.
I'd be curious as to see as to what the full layout or what the full plan is, and I wonder if there's improvements to rail in order to go meet what the new design is going to be.
Right. Um, yeah. So are they going to bring? Um, that's an interesting point. Are they going to bring a switch or a siding and have the rail like come straight down and then have this come over so they don't have to build an extra 1,000 feet of conveyor to reach the rail where it is? I mean, that makes sense.
Right.
But
And I don't know what the cost trade off would be between bringing the rail line closer to the pier versus extending the conveyor system out to.
gosh, you would. I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
right? But you would think laying some track, which people have been doing since 1830, would be. I mean, people have been building conveyors probably that long too. So, but I would think the track would be more reasonable for,
Yeah.
because you don't want to maintain 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet of conveyor
Right.
and turns and I don't know.
Yeah. I don't.
We're just speculating. And I did ask. I'm like, so communications person at Tradepoint Atlantic, who we both know. Is there a map? No.
Yeah, there's probably some design work that has to go into it. So
Right. I'd just be, of course, I'd be fascinated. Remember, map guy,
sure.
how all this works, and then just so we're here right now. This is a bulker.
Mm.
The Amish treasure, the soap pot
Hmm.
is a bulker, and so is Amos. Now, this is pretty unusual. At least one of these ships is a gantry crane ship or a row. So to see three bulkers in at once is a little
Yeah.
unusual.
Sure.
It's probably just a fluke in scheduling or whatever. But I thought that was interesting.
Okay. So they're expecting commissioning of this system to take place January 2026. So they should
Oh, okay.
moving right along here.
All
All
right.
right. So in our um, in our upcoming events, we have
Mm-hmm.
this Wednesday the June meeting of the Women's Traffic and Transportation Club of Baltimore, 6 p.m. out at
Nice.
Buon Appetito Restaurant. Our friend Reverend Josh is speaking.
Cool.
And then they've got their Person of the Year award and their scholarship award for this year. and then the installation of the officers. So if you want to see Reverend Josh in his presentation, I'm not sure if tickets are still available or not. I got mine, so we will be out.
Good for you.
We will be out there for that.
I still might try to make it. We'll see. We can figure out.
All right, so in our Port of Baltimore history segment for this episode, there's actually two different dates that we want to talk about that happened in the first week in June within the port. And back in 1814, so this was June 1st, 1814, a squadron of the British Navy in severe weather challenged the famed U.S. Chesapeake Flotilla. This is an image here of the flotilla off Cedar Point, which is near the confluence of the Patuxent River and the Chesapeake Bay. So these were a modest fleet of armed barges that assembled to harass the British ships during the war. And so with an inadequate professional navy in the War of 1812, the flotilla was the best hope for disrupting British operations on the bay. And after advancing on the superior British squadron, the flotilla escaped into the Patuxent River and became trapped by enemy ships. And the 500 flotilla men were a hardy lot. So they rode into the battle fully exposed to enemy fire and the elements, cramped side by side. They rode feverishly, muscles aching from maneuvering of 50 to 75-foot barges, and jolted from guns fired on board. Drenching rains, churning waters assaulted them off Cedar Point. Amazingly, there were no casualties in the skirmish. So that's I cannot imagine having to row a barge out to the fleet and fire cannons off the back end of it. So that's quite an undertaking for, with a little bit of War of 1812 history. Also,
and then War of 1812. Okay, the Port of Baltimore was what? What's the term? Incorporated? That's not the right term. In 1706. Okay. And what was the term they used? That we didn't have a what?
With an inadequate professional navy?
Does that seem odd to you? I mean, the port was commissioned in 1706. How are we lacking I'm not doubting the accuracy of what you're reading. I'm just saying it seems to be not make sense to me.
Well, if the Navy was born, this was the Continental Navy in October the 13th, 1775. And I look at the timestamp around 1814.
So it's only 40 years.
It's only 40 years. And if I look at shipbuilding and naval operations and what's happening within the military theater in the U.S. from the late 1700s to the early 1800s, I think that this is, we had kind of a skeleton navy at that point, definitely compared to what we are doing today. But I would think that this, if they were having to do this, then this is an example of an inadequate professional navy.
Yeah. Well, yes. And the other side of it is that, people were out there rowing these things with like you said, with a cannon on it, trying to,
here, turn it around,
attack a real navy, Oh, while we're rowing? Yeah, exactly. Right. That's the whole right thing about that.
Spin it around so
you're rowing as hard as you can to get out there. Right. Oh, and now everybody row in a different direction. Turn this thing around so we can fire the cannon actually at what we've been rowing towards for a half hour. That's crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well then,
When you
fast forward a little bit. All right. So let's go up to let's go up to World War II. Now wait a second. We didn't have. I don't. Somebody's going to say, "Oh, wait a second. World War II was we didn't have fighting in the Bay." Well, we used it for training though, and so
that's the tie-in.
yeah, that's where the tie-in is for the second point. So with D-Day 80 years ago, the some of the largest amphibious invasions actually took place here in the Chesapeake Bay, and so during much of the United States movement in World War I, Maryland and Virginia waters and beaches were major training sites for amphibious landings. And so there were bases located at Solomon's Island, down in Calvert County, and Little Creek and Camp Bradford in Virginia. And so these two areas were used to stage and practice the D-Day related invasion. So you can see a picture here.
Wow.
You and I kind of mentioned, this is a practice, and they've got the dummy boxes here, and they actually have these ammunition boxes in the picture that are labeled dummy to represent, hey, there's no ammunition in here, but you got to practice this process.
Right.
And so, even if there isn't fighting that has taken place, there has been training related to international military theaters. And so
that is interesting, to know that back then, people were training on the bay for, maybe not for Normandy specifically, I don't know.
Correct.
But, but
so kind of
that is pretty cool to learn.
So kind of to kind of bring this full circle, when we were talking about the ready reserve fleets and the strategic military command ships, we have a resource here that has a very long history of military involvement.
Okay. Right.
So that is,
and supposedly that's why we get ship commissionings here, because quote unquote the Navy loves Baltimore.
Right.
And I think in our last, 50 or 60 years, Baltimore has become a small town, right? There was at one point where it was one of the largest cities on the East Coast. And an awful lot started and happened here, right? And now we're kind of overshadowed by, Philly and New York and Norfolk and whatever. And that's cool. But I think people forget, how many things actually, started and happened here. There's an awful lot of history here.
All right. Well, that's all that I've got.
All right, so just a reminder, we are Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay Shipwatchers. Been around since 2017. We're just fascinated with everything that goes on at the port, and we try to help spread the message of the port and educate folks as best we can. And now we've been using this podcast for about a year, Kipp. It's been about a year, right?
Yep.
But we're also on Twix. Shout out Amy Lawrence. Instagram, Reddit, Threads, obviously YouTube. And we have a website full of information with links to the live stream camera, this podcast. We have some swag for sale. There's ship schedules and port maps, all kinds of information. We've even heard that the Coast Guard and other companies actually use the camera and the website, which is, you can't get much better validation than that.
That is really cool.
Maybe you're
also, if just
providing a cool thing.
That is really cool. Also, if you want to get the audio version of this, we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
There we go.
All right. you're going to take a little break from us, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going on vacation.
All right, so you're on vacation. I gotta find a substitute here just to see what happens. So we'll
Are you going for the whole gray hair and glasses thing, or what are you doing?
It's going to be a surprise.
Oh, okay.
How about that? We'll see what we can do with that. So
okay.
But we'll hope you have a good vacation. For everybody else, we'll see everybody sometime next week.
Sounds good. Thanks for listening.
Oh, hold on a second. I didn't. Hold on. All right, so let's 3, 2, 1. Happy ship watching.
Happy ship watching. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.